Tomb Raider, one of the most well-known action-adventure series of all time. Whether it be the games or those Angelina Jolie movies that everybody loves so much, if somebody told you that they had never heard of Tomb Raider, you can immediately tell that they're lying out of their ass.
I'm pretty sure you guys are all familiar with the series and its lovable heroine, so I don't think we should waste any more time talking about how well known it is and just get straight on with it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my marathon of Tomb Raider, or as I like to call it, my Lara Palooza.
Tomb Raider, one of the most influential and awe-inspiring games ever created. Next to Mario 64, this game practically pioneered 3D platforming and introduced one of gaming's most recognizable characters, a female protagonist with breasts that are almost bigger than her head.
I can already see why this game got a lot of attention back in the day. This game was developed by a small company known as Core Design, which at the time only consisted of 6 people. 6 people! That is bold to create something like this with so few staff involved. I mean, they had to come up with a fresh new genre for video gaming, one that nobody had ever seen before. This game could have easily been a gigantic flop, but boy did it deliver. But does the first Tomb Raider game still hold up today after 16 years since its release? Well, no. No, it doesn't.
Nah, this game isn't necessarily terrible, but I definitely wouldn't call this a good game either. It's one of those games that's either played for nostalgia purposes or just plain curiosity as to how the Tomb Raider series first started. But this was one of the first games to let you play as an independent woman instead of the usual bulky male, and yes, I said one of the first and not the first like most people think she is. By 1996, we've had a few other video game heroines to play as, such as the Guardian from the Guardian Legend, and even Jill Valentine from the slightly earlier Resident Evil. Yet for some reason, Miss Lara Croft here has become an inspiration for future video game heroines yet to come. Though I still personally don't think she made as much of an impact as a certain other character I know.
But enough about me trying to make a point, let's dive right into the very first Tomb Raider.
Now I'd just like to point out first that while most people seem to think that this originated on the PlayStation, in actuality it first appeared on the Sega Saturn. The PlayStation version just happened to be the most popular. The version I'm going to be using is off of a DOS emulator for reasons which I will explain later. I unfortunately can't tell you what the Sega Saturn version is like because I've never played it myself. Can someone please explain to me if this version is any different? Anyway, on to the game. In the opening cutscene, we witness a large explosion occurring in Mexico, where in the crater we can see a life form frozen in ice. Immediately cut to a hotel in India, this is where we meet our main character, English archaeologist Lara Croft. Let me say that again. Lara Croft, not Laura Croft. It even says on the damn box, people, it's not that hard to pronounce. Lara is given an assignment by one Jacqueline Natla via laptop provided by this dimwit known as Larson, to retrieve a mystical artifact known as the Scion. She doesn't tell her what exactly the Scion does or if there are any consequences to obtaining it, but Lara decides to try and nab it anyway because I'm guessing she's greedy as well as scrawny. Natla informs us that the Scion is in Peru on top of a mountain in the middle of a heavy snowstorm, and you're accompanied by what's-his-face, who doesn't stick around for very long because it gets mauled by hungry wolves, thus leaving Lara to get rid of him herself. Look at this, she's apparently so badass she doesn't even need a coat or warm pants to prevent her getting hypothermia. So once she gets inside the tomb and takes her sunglasses off, we can now play the game. Tomb Raider is a third-person action-adventure puzzler platformer, with the keywords and core mechanics, see what I did there, being a puzzler and a platformer. You will be doing a lot of precise jumping in this game, and there are many, many puzzles to solve. Some which will require you to use your brain, others, and by that I mean most of them, which just involve you to know where you're going. In addition to this, you also have to shoot and kill various enemies, which are mostly animals, including wolves, gorillas, leopards, panthers, and dinosaurs. Kick ass! Eventually, you'll also have to kill supernatural enemies like mummies and demons, which is pretty sweet. Whoa, they explode? Cool. You're able to get a total of 4 weapons in this game. If you're running low on ammunition or health, then if you search hard enough, you'll be able to find secrets which can fill you up a little more. Anyway, back to the puzzles. They mostly consist of just pulling levers, collecting keys, and putting them in the right keyholes, or moving certain blocks that are sometimes easy to distinguish, but other times they just look like ordinary walls. If this has happened to you before, then you may or may not know how much of a pain that can be. Platforming is also much trickier than your average action-adventure nowadays. You see, even if you get some satisfaction out of solving a puzzle or killing a bunch of enemies, getting to these places is a gigantic issue because, dear lord, the controls suck in this game. Remember the tank-like controls back in Resident Evil? Well, think of it like that, only 10 times worse. At least in that game, you only had to worry about moving around. But as well as having to walk forward and rotate constantly, you also have to worry about jumping, grabbing, pushing, pulling, pressing, picking, dropping, walking, swimming, rolling, dodging, looking, shooting, and most importantly, dying. There's no denying it. You will die in this game. You will die a lot because of a combination of awkward controls, level design, and enemies. Okay, maybe not so much the enemies because they go down pretty easily thanks to the auto lock on, but definitely the controls and level design. You actually have to tell Lara to grab onto a ledge by holding down the action button because, well, why wouldn't you want to grab onto that ledge? You have to be in the correct spot in order to do anything with this action button. Even something as simple as pulling a lever or picking up an object requires you to be at precisely the right position, otherwise it just looks like Lara's standing there for no good reason. There isn't a drop button either, so instead you have to turn around, jump back, grab onto the ledge, and then let go of the action button. But as well as that, there are also 3 different jumping distances for Lara, and trust me, you will need to work out how to do these jumps, because each one will either be your key to success, or will smack Lara to a wall leading to her death. So, in other words, the controls are convoluted as hell. Graphically speaking, oh dear. I will cut it some slack considering that this was one of the first 3D platformers and that the 3D console era was still very young at this time. But looking back at it today, wow, was this game ugly. Also, and this may be just me, but does anybody else feel that the PlayStation graphics are incredibly disorienting? This is one of the main reasons I decided to record off of the DOS version, because being on a computer, the graphics are a lot less pixelated than what you would see on the PlayStation. But regardless of which console the game's on, explain to me how 15-year-olds in the mid-90s saw any sexual appeal to whatever the hell this thing is. Because yeah, I would totally tap that wide square butt. Or maybe even cup a feel on her triangular breasts. Why do they remind me of Samus's chest plate? And just look at that beautiful face. How can you say no to that? With her edgy, poofy head and missing ponytail. Even the CG cutscenes don't make her look that pretty, because good god are these character models creepy. They look like overly polished mannequins. It's scary. When I see this, I don't feel turned on. I just want to hide behind my couch because I think she's going to eat me. The areas can also look pretty damn bland. You see, after taking a suspiciously short time to find the Ski-On in Peru, you come across a double-crossing Larson who tells you that that's only one of the 3 pieces of the Ski-On. After investigating through Natla's headquarters, you find out that the second piece is located in Greece. And after obtaining it and putting the 2 pieces together, you see that the last one is in Egypt. It's your job to get these pieces before Natla does. As you'd suspect, there's a lot of brown and gold in Greece and Egypt. So if those are your 2 favorite colors, then you're going to love these 2 areas. But like I said, they have a pretty flavorless level design. With that said, though, I do get some gratification out of standing on top of the Sphinx, and Greece has some pretty cool gimmicks based on its mythology, so at least we have that. As for the music, however, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think it's worse than Metroid 2. And by that I mean there's barely any music at all. Except there's even less music than in Metroid 2. It's even got the continuous sound of Lara's footsteps. I mean, yeah, the lack of music can create a tense atmosphere at times, but for the most part I almost feel like I'm about to fall asleep because I'm not being pumped up by the fast-paced fighting music. The only songs that are actually present in the game are the main theme that plays at the title screen, the chime that plays when you find a secret, the incredibly rare battle music, and finally in some of the boss fights. Talking of which, despite the horrendous controls, these have got to be some of the easiest boss battles I've ever encountered. In addition to having little to no health, the battle mainly consists of just shooting and replenishing your health until the dude falls. Even the Centaur boss in Greece gets eventually downgraded to mini-boss standards in the Egypt levels. The only boss in the game that I found remotely challenging was the second to last one, Torso. The area is rather claustrophobic, which means it's very easy to fall off the edge, and Torso takes a lot of abuse. The strategy to beating him is as simple as before, but god damn, my fingers hurt after the battle. So while the bosses don't take much effort to beat, I do get quite a bit of satisfaction out of killing them. Particularly the bigger ones. I mean, come on, you get to fight a freaking T-Rex, how awesome is that? However, one boss I can't freaking stand is Pierre Dupont, a French guy working for Natla who's also on the hunt for the pieces of the Ski-On. You only face him in certain areas of Greece, but up until after the fight with the Centaurs, you can't kill him. You can try piercing as many bullets through him as you can, he won't die. But he can shoot you, how is that fair? So the best you can do is just keep shooting at him until he runs away, but he can still be pretty damn annoying whenever you come across him. Go away, it's bad enough that I have to deal with these god-awful controls. I don't need you constantly shooting at me in the back as well. He's especially a pain in the ass in one of my most hated levels in the game known as Cistern. This level is almost identical to the water temple from Ocarina of Time in terms of level design. You have to keep changing the water levels, it's a chore to travel through, and there are way too many locked doors. And on top of that, you also have Mr. Douche Punt over here following you all the damn time. Away from that, the last thing I need to mention about the gameplay is the save system. In the PlayStation version, the only way you could save is by either finishing a level or by finding these save crystals scattered around each level. In the DOS version, you're able to save wherever and whenever you want to, so you can already guess the other reason I chose to play off of this version instead of on the PlayStation. Save crystals are incredibly scarce in that version, and worst of all, if you use one, then it disappears, meaning you can't use it again. So that means you have to be incredibly careful when choosing to save, because if you got far in a level and suddenly died, which believe me will happen, then you have to go through it all over again. Oh, piss off, Pierre! Okay, let's move on with the story. After obtaining the last piece of the Skion and getting out of the Egyptian tomb, Lara gets blindsided and ambushed by Natla and her henchmen. They steal her weapons, take all 3 pieces of the Skion, and attempt to kill her. But Lara ultimately escapes before they can. Soon after, she finds Natla's boat and sneaks on board to head to her mines. This is my other most hated level in the game, because it requires you to get your weapons back and finish off Natla's henchmen. But before you can even get your pistols back, you have to find 3 fuses to lower the crane and get inside the building containing them. Why put it there of all places? But that's not all. The henchmen are also far in between, meaning you have to get through a bunch of tedious obstacles just to get to one of them, and if you're playing the PlayStation version, pray to God that you don't die. You see this? This is how long it took me to beat the level, and this is with minimal error, and the ability to save anywhere. This level just drags, and it's one that you want to get through as quickly as possible. So at the second to last level, Natla flicks a switch which awakens all the demons we saw earlier. This is also where we're given the introduction to Lara's skinless doppelganger, who mimics everything she does and kinda looks a lot like E.T. At the end of the level, we reach the Skion again, and touching it allows us to see that Natla was once the ruler of Atlantis, along with the gods of the other tombs we raided earlier. The other gods banished Natla for her crimes, and instead of execution, they just freeze her and bury her.
I mean, really, it's common movie logic. If something is frozen for God knows how many years, then chances are there will come a time where it'll just be dug up again anyway, causing more havoc than before. But hey, as long as she's not bothering the other gods, then that makes everything okay, right?
So in actuality, the last 2 levels take place in the Great Pyramid of Atlantis, and after acknowledging that and cutting to present time, Natla confronts Lara once again and informs her that she plans to use the Skion to recreate her army and restore her power as a ruler. Lara obviously won't let that happen and attempts to shoot the Skion, but Natla pushes her out of the way and falls into the not-so-bottomless pit. As Lara climbs back up, we come to the final level where she fights Torso. Once he's defeated and we avoid more insane traps and solve puzzles that require a bit of backtracking and trial and error, we come across a Skion one more time and destroy it. Now Lara has to escape the Pyramid of Atlantis before it collapses on her, although there's no time limit so there's really no pressure. Whilst escaping, we meet up with Natla for one last battle, now sprouting a pair of wings and a triple fireball launcher thing. Like the other bosses, the fight with Natla really isn't that hard. Even when she tries to trick you into thinking she's dead, her second phase is still pretty easy. Oh, look at that, she's stuck on the floor. Come on, Natla, come on, you can do it. Come to me, Natla, finish me off. With Natla defeated, we can now climb up to the top of the exit and slide down to victory. Lara escapes from Atlantis and rides out to sea, ending the first Tomb Raider, with what has got to be the shortest and sweetest credit sequence I've ever seen. The credits in the PlayStation version are even shorter. How short? Well, this is it. This one screen is the entire credit sequence. Now why the hell can't most games be like that nowadays? As a whole though, Tomb Raider is one of those games that hasn't aged very well. The level design is bland, the graphics will make you feel dizzy, or at least in my case, and most importantly, the controls are just too stiff for anybody to enjoy. I mean, come on, you're controlling a 3D platforming game with a D-pad. It will hurt your hands big time. The only couple of things I think that are good about this game is the story and the conversations between Lara and Larson. Let's just say that when it comes to these two, it's the only time in a Tomb Raider game that I actually laugh. The voice acting is also pretty good, which is saying a lot considering that this is a PS1 game. Unfortunately though, there are very few cutscenes in the game, and even then there isn't that much dialogue in some of them. That and the only exception I have to the acting is the delivery from Natla.
You can't, Well, kill her, you morons!
Come on, that's like Resident Evil and Symphony of the Night bad. She just makes me laugh for the wrong reasons. But with all that in mind, I'll give the game a 6.5 out of 10, standing for an archaic eyesore.
Despite what I've said, however, Tomb Raider was a ginormous success. It sold 7 million copies and turned a $2.6 million loss from Eidos into a $14.5 million profit in only a year. And do I even need to talk about the legacy for this game? Lara Croft is one of the most famous video game icons of all time. And even today, men drool over her and women want to be her. Lara Croft ruled the freaking world. Now, how did the sequels compare to this beloved game? Let's find out.
Now, something to keep in mind about these sequels is that the gameplay is relatively the same, with some minor adjustments between each installment. So that means I'm not going to be covering them in as much detail as I did with the original, and to this day, the original is the only classic Tomb Raider game I've beaten so far. So I think of my opinions as more or less first impressions of the game. Anyway, let's move on to Tomb Raider 2, the most sold game in the series that's often considered to be the best of the classic games. The story involves the dagger of Xian that the Emperor of China used to have to command his army. If the dagger is plunged into the owner's heart, then it turns him into a dragon. The last battle that used the dagger was put into the heart of the Emperor. However, it was taken out by Tibetan monks and put away within the Great Wall while turning the Emperor back to a human. In present times, Lara searches for the dagger and further investigates. Gameplay-wise, it pretty much plays the same like the first game, though the strange thing is I like this a lot more for some reason. I have absolutely no idea what they've done to improve it, but somehow it just feels better than the first game. The level design is about the same as before, and the controls are still clunky, so what exactly is it that makes this game superior? Well, I guess for starters, the movement controls don't feel quite as stiff. I mean, it's still stiff, but not quite as stiff as last time. Some minor adjustments were given to Lara's moveset, such as the ability to climb ladders, roll while in midair or underwater, and drive vehicles. It's not much, but it's a nice addition anyway. Instead of secrets that give you extra ammunition and health, they're replaced by these dragon statues, which if you collect all 3 in a level, you get a massive ammo top-up. I will definitely praise the game for looking much prettier than the original, and the environments have a hell of a lot more variety this time around. As far as I'm aware, though, there aren't any tombs in this game. The closest you're ever going to get to a tomb level is the first level on the Great Wall of China, but that's about it. The other levels are either outside or in some landmark, which is something I don't really expect in a game called Tomb Raider. But hey, at least you have the option to kill 2 T-Rexes. The last thing to mention is the addition of exploring Lara's home. This was also present in the first game, but you couldn't necessarily explore because it was more of a tutorial level. However, in this game you're now able to run around everywhere in the house, and undoubtedly lock your butler in the fridge to get some personal space. Ah, Lara, you're so cold-hearted. Lara's mansion is actually kinda nice, despite being rather spacious and the fact that the furniture is almost as tall as she is. But I don't know if it's because I suck at searching, but some people seem to get a lot of enjoyment out of examining every nook and cranny in this place for some reason. I'm pretty sure I've searched everywhere around the house, but I haven't really found anything major. Is there supposed to be? As for the main game though, I suggest giving it a shot. It's pretty much on everything now, so there's no excuse not getting it. You can even find it in the App Store for about £5, so it's pretty inexpensive nowadays. So far, this is the next game in the classic series that I've gotten through the furthest, which is why I'll give it an 8 out of 10, standing for tomb lacking but better than the original. Next up is Tomb Raider 3: Adventures of Lara Croft. Millions of years ago, a meteor struck into Antarctica and destroyed any living being that was unfortunate enough to be in its presence. Cut to current times, we see travelers investigating Antarctica and come across some strange-looking statues and an old grave. Starting a new game, we're in India for some reason. But anyway, like the last 2 games, nothing's really that different, except now we're able to crawl and sprint. Woohoo. Actually, sprinting is something I think that should be in every game, but the crawling is definitely not something I call an improvement. When I say this game is similar to Tomb Raider 2, I am not exaggerating. It feels more like early DLC for Tomb Raider 2. It's just too much of the same game. And from at least what I've heard and played, the level design is nowhere near as good as the other 2 games. And even then, they were only just reasonable level designs to begin with. Except for that freaking Opera House level in Tomb Raider 2. God, I hated that. I think the biggest issue with the level design, though, is that it's just too big and complicated. That, and I've personally never been a huge fan of jungle levels, with the exception of Donkey Kong Country and Snake Eater. And Metroid. I've also heard complaints about the game being stupidly difficult, but honestly, I don't find it hard, I just find it annoying. Oh, and those goddamn save crystals are back. Jesus Christ, when will you leave me? In the PC version, they were little pickups to refill a bit of your health, like with a Medipack, so why did the PlayStation version not get that too? The save crystals, unlike Tomb Raider 1, however, give you the ability to save whenever you like. But they decrease by 1 and are few and far between, and really you just wish you could save whenever you want to. Or even better, have checkpoints! Anyway, eventually in your travels in India, you come across a camper wanting to get away, but quickly asks if he knows anything about the...
Well, I'm not quite sure where you're coming from, but I just want to know about the Infada artifact.
Sorry, what?
But I just want to know about the Infada artifact.
The Infada?
But I just want to know about the Infada artifact.
Okay, so Lara's looking for the Infada.
The camper tells her that his buddies is looking for the Infada in a hidden temple around the area, but he doesn't exactly know what it does. After that, he packs his stuff and leaves Lara on her quest for the Bakalakadaka. As for the game itself, I still like it more than the original, and I'm definitely grateful for the analog control, but this is unfortunately not one I'd recommend you play first if you're new to the classic series. The level design is just too confusing and too large for almost anyone to bear. With that said, I'll give the game a 7.2 out of 10, standing for bland and unevolved, which was what made me move on to Tomb Raider: The Last Revelation. Now here's a fun game. Ooh, a title cinematic. Getting fancy with our graphics this time around, eh, Core? As you begin the game, you're introduced to teenage Lara and her older mentor, Werner von Croy, who are investigating ancient ruins in Cambodia. Unlike the last 3 games, where the mansions were a way of showing the ropes before you went on to the main game, here the section with young Lara is the tutorial level itself, which is one of the main turnoffs for most people, including myself. Not so much being no longer able to explore Lara's mansion, because like I said, I never really cared about doing that, but putting an unskippable tutorial level in the main game when most people at this point have already played the other 3 Tomb Raiders isn't exactly stellar either. However, it does lead to an important plot point in the end of the level where Von Croy is, okay, you know what, I'm just going to call him Werner Von Creepy from now on, because I dare you to listen to this dialogue and tell me that it's not the least bit suspicious that this guy could be a pedophile.
You will catch your death in those clothes, my dear. A quick sprint up that ladder will dry you out again.
Such concern. I never knew you cared.
Dear Lara, you are a valuable asset to the quest.
You are romantic, you.
Yes, quite.
Yes, I would like to raid your tomb sometime, my child.
Alright, back to the story. Lara and Werner Von Creepy find the artifact they're looking for, but Lara finds inscriptions saying that if they take it, there could be danger. Von Creepy of course ignores this, and taking it makes the temple close itself, trapping him with it, but of course Lara manages to escape. In present times, grown-up Lara and, what's-his-face Jr. search around the tomb of Seth in Egypt for a charm known as the Amulet of Horus, which he eventually finds out is a key sealing a dark Egyptian god. Upon escaping the tomb, it seems that What's-His-Face Jr. is working for Von Creepy, who also wants the amulet for himself. Gameplay-wise, aside from the addition of climbing across bars, it's the same as the other games, but what's really improved is the level design. It is so much better than it was before, especially Tomb Raider 3. I can't explain it, but if you're really curious, I suggest you play the other 3 games first and then play this one afterwards. The level design just feels better, and the environments, while a little dark, create such a good atmosphere. And there's a very good mix of raiding tombs and just going outside. If there's one thing that could be said about the other games was that despite the title, they either spent too much of the gameplay outside or you were just sick of looking at the same bland environments in the tombs over and over again. Last Revelation just has something for everybody. There are even levels that require you to look through a tomb and investigate outside at the same time. In addition, the graphics and the CG cutscenes look great, especially for a PS1 game. Yet quite a number of people still don't like this game for some strange reason. But these complaints are some of the most bullshit nitpicking I've ever seen. For one, people have complained about the item menu being too different. It's exactly the same, it just doesn't move in a ring motion. The only thing I did notice that was different was the ability to change ammo, which produced different effects. Like the shotgun can change the bullets that scatter more but decrease in range. I don't see what the big deal is. I didn't even use this ammunition for my shotgun once. It can be easily ignored, people. Get over it. Another thing that people have been bitching about is that there isn't an option to go into Lara's home. Well, I'm sorry, I thought this game was called Tomb Raider, not House Raider. Isn't the main game supposed to be like the most important aspect? You know, going on an adventure, searching for the unfound, raiding some fucking tombs? And all these people care about is what kind of carpet Lara has? My lord, these are some spoiled bastards. So the last thing people didn't like about this game was that the whole thing took place in Egypt. Which, yeah, that is kind of understandable because the other 3 games involved you going all over the place. Venice, India, Peru, and even Atlantis. I haven't beaten The Last Revelation yet, so I can't say if I like the whole idea of just being in Egypt, especially considering that I hate sand levels, but from the sounds of it, it doesn't seem that bad. From what I played, I overall enjoyed Last Revelation. If you're curious about how the older Tomb Raider games play, but the first one looked a bit too archaic for you, try out The Last Revelation. It's a good use of both playing inside and outside tombs without breaking the formula completely, and is full of action to keep you from getting bored. And like I said, there's something for everybody, so if you didn't like one particular part, then look forward to another. I'll give it an 8.5 out of 10, standing for sand, sand, and more sand. The last game we're going to look at is Tomb Raider Chronicles, the final game in the PlayStation era. This is actually set days after The Last Revelation, making this an actual continuation to the story. Lara is presumed dead by a spoiler from the last game I'd rather not give away, but of course she's still alive. Do you really think they're going to kill her off that easily? Oh, wait. However, Werner von Creepy is still excavating where she last was in hope of her living. Cut to Croft Manor, 3 friends of Lara's gather around and look over some of her past adventures. The first story they discuss is where she's in Rome looking for the mythical Philosopher's Stone. Wasn't that a Harry Potter movie? And of course, there's somebody else looking for the stone as well. Only this time it's familiar faces, Larson and Pierre Dupont from the first game. And that's pretty much it in terms of the story. Kinda weak and filled with questions. What does the Philosopher's Stone do? Why is it in Rome? How come nobody's found it yet, even though it's a pretty populated city?
Your guess is as good as mine.
The gameplay is not much better either. It's literally the exact same game. Same shitty controls, same shitty moveset, same shitty enemies, same everything. Oh, but wait, you can now perform a slow, tedious tightrope walk. Yeah, good job, Core. That's what the series really needed. Apparently you can also swing on horizontal bars, but I never got that far, so I'll probably never know. But come on, Cora, it's been 5 games now. Didn't you think you should have evolved the series in some way? Preferably a better control scheme? The Roman environment doesn't particularly impress me either. It's just a dark city. Am I really supposed to be enthralled? The level design is also insanely confusing. In fact, I think it's worse than Tomb Raider 3. You would not believe the amount of time it took me to figure out that you could open these doors, because the goddamn tutorial level sure as hell didn't tell me that. That would have actually been pretty helpful. But instead, it just teaches me what I already know. Well, at least the graphics and cutscenes still look nice. That's something, right? The voice acting is still pretty good, too. I quite like Lara's voice actress from The Last Revelation. And Pierre is still pretty cool to listen to as well. Although, why is Larson supposed to be more stupid than he was in the first game? And when did he start working for Pierre and call him boss all the time, like one of those generic mobsters? Okay, now I'm nitpicking. But anyway, Tomb Raider Chronicles is okay overall, but at this point you're kind of wishing for something different in the series. And I'm not talking about niche things like tightrope walking, Core. We want full control, not having to constantly and painfully line up your jumps and tell Lara to grab onto a ledge, where she may or may not obey. If this game still sounds appealing to you, then go ahead and give it a try. But this is not a classic Tomb Raider game I'd recommend you play first. With that said, I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10, standing for bleh. Out of the entire ocean of classic Tomb Raider games, I'd highly recommend The Last Revelation. Or Tomb Raider 2, whatever takes your fancy.
Oh my god, this is a long review. So we've had a bit of a mixed start with the Tomb Raider series. Some were good, some were not quite as good. But this is only the beginning of Larapalooza, and you know what? I have high hopes that the next installment of the series will be a contender for the best Tomb Raider game of all time. So tune in next time when we look at Tomb Raider, the Angel of Darkness. I'm Josh Smith from Reviews Yes here, and may God have mercy on my soul.
You have my total attention now. I'm not quite sure if I've got yours, though. Hello?
I'll heel and hide you to a barn door yet.
What?
Right. Now I'd better take off these wet clothes.
Seriously, people, what do you see in her?